Well, we saw a big rally in equity markets here, but crypto markets sitting this one out. They're struggling to power through the implosion of Silvergate Capital. The bank, well, it's one of the main banking providers for the crypto industry, and well, it's been hurt big time because of it. Bitcoin hitting the 2-week low today. For more, let's bring in a Bloomberg News reporter, Yuequi Yang, to talk a little bit more of what's going on. And I mean, there was so much that happened this week in the crypto space, particularly with the companies that are wedded to it. We'll start off with Silvergate. They had basically bet their fortune on the crypto world. And of course, we saw the big statement that they had to come out with. This idea here that, well, if everyone's pulling their deposits and, you just don't really have anything to support some of the investments that they were making.
Yeah, so what we're seeing here is really this ripple effect starting from the fallout of FTX collapse last November. FTX was the main client for Silvergate, and ever since its bankruptcy, there's been concern about Silvergate. We saw bank run, and then, as you said, this week they're coming out to announce that they couldn't file their annual filing on time. They indicated risk of being investigated by the Department of Justice, and they really talk about their internally evaluating if they can stay afloat, and that really prompted concerns by all the counterparties, major crypto exchanges, stablecoin issuers, trading firms, who all rely on Silvergate's platform to be able to send real-time payment between each other.
Well, Yuequi, it felt like when the FTX fallout kind of came out, you did see essentially those players who kind of fell like dominoes, essentially. And then I want to say Gemini, for me, was the big one. Really all as this fallout from Three Arrows Capital, even before FTX. How much more shoe dropping is there to go? Or is this it?
I think this one is unique because Silvergate is really kind of a behind-the-scene kind of company. They provide critical infrastructure for the crypto industry. They don't themselves touch crypto, but they provide the ability for people to send real-world US dollar into the crypto economy. So now the concern is that whether that access might be curtailed or even be cut out for the crypto industry.
This is putting a lot of renewed focus, I think, on how these companies were audited, some of the oversight there. And we know that the crypto industry is kind of weird because they didn't have the same formal regulatory structure that maybe other finance companies would. They are still beholden to sort of public accounting rules here. But when we talk about this idea of not knowing that Silvergate was having these problems, the idea that Binance still is having issues, I guess, proving some of the reserves. And then, of course, some of the statements that we got out of Riot Blockchain and Marathon about maybe they misaccounted for some of their impairments.
Yeah, so what we're seeing now is really this intense regulatory scrutiny over the industry, especially coming from the federal banking regulators. And as a result, all these companies, they have to look at the financial access, they have to look at their accounting, the weight of the records for books, and we expect to see more fallout and signals coming from Washington, D.C. on this.
But this isn't a done deal here. Silvergate still said that, look, we're still figuring out a way to stay in business. How did they do that?
So they are still taking time to be able to submit more information to their accounting company. They told us that they're working to be able to file their 10K annual filing as soon as possible. I think meanwhile, the crypto industry really just can't sit out and wait. Some of the biggest crypto companies are already announcing that they are suspending the wire transfer with Silvergate. People in the industry are talking about trying to find an alternative for Silvergate, which we know has been hard because Silvergate is really one of the few banks that were able to provide this service to begin with.
We talk about sort of the big collapse in crypto prices, and we'll just take Bitcoin because obviously that's the main proxy here, coming down from that high back in 2021. But we saw this resurgence up for a few weeks, kind of back up to around that above 20,000. I think it made a run for 25. There are a lot of people that say the fact that it never really collapsed down, because remember there were all these everyone was like, oh, this is going back down to 1,000 or something ridiculous, and we never got there. Is that an encouraging sign? Is there a price action that you're watching that gives maybe some signal that there is sort of a floor to this right now? Yeah,
so I think we did see a rally in the Bitcoin prices, although now that Bitcoin price is really being hurt by this Silvergate sentiment in the industry. Earlier last month, I think the sentiment is more optimistic in the industry. We heard industry leaders like Michael Novogratz talking about even a $30,000 price point for Bitcoin. But now, of course, we're still pretty far away from that range.